Hello and welcome to the Stitched By podcast, the podcast that focuses on the crafters, creators, and pattern makers within the sewing, knitting, and crochet communities. In each episode, you will hear from someone you know and love, or someone new. I'm your host, Ari at Stitched by Ari, and today's guest is Sarah at Sarah Bernier and Les Perlines. Sarah is a fashion designer, footwear designer, and the founder of Les Perlines, a sewing pattern brand that blends feminine and trend-driven designs with thoughtful craftsmanship. With a technical degree in fashion design and a bachelor's degree in both business and fashion design, Sarah brings a unique mix of creative expertise and industry knowledge to her work. Her journey in fashion began at a young age. Taught to sew by her grandmother, she knew by the time she was 10 that she wanted to be a fashion designer, even if she didn't yet know what that truly meant. That passion led her to a career in footwear design, where she worked full-time while simultaneously building Les Perlines, developing thoughtfully crafted sewing patterns that empower makers to create beautiful, well-fitting garments. Through her Pattern Lab series and engaging Instagram content, Sarah shares insights into pattern development, sewing techniques, and the creative process, inspiring fellow makers to bring their visions to life. Sarah, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for you, for this podcast, for this whole thing. And thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. It's very exciting to have you as the first guest in this new podcast. How odd is it to have someone read your entire bio while you're just sitting there?
It's an experience.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Also because you're like, oh, how should I act? Like, should I just be like, oh yeah. That is me. So that's
Totally
the vibe.
understand. Yeah, I feel you. Speaking of your bio, you mentioned that you knew from the age of 10 that you wanted to be a fashion designer. And it's amazing to see that not only did you accomplish that, but you now run your own company. Can you talk about how going to school to study business and fashion design led to you working as a footwear designer first, and what the experience of working in the fashion industry was like for you?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny because like when I was young, when I said like, oh, from the time I was 10, I remember asking my parents, just like telling my parents like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. And I remember my dad, like very seriously, was like, oh yeah, like there's this college program that's like the technical degree that I did, like in fashion. He was like, oh yeah, there's this college that's like near here where they give this degree, and it's the only place near my parents' house that had it. And I was like 10 and I was like, oh yeah. Okay. Like done deal. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And it's just really weird that it kind of never changed. And like I didn't go into this because like I said I would. Like it just always stayed something that I was so interested in. So that I think it's just funny, like how something I said when I was young turned out to be something that I actually meant, or that I would want to do for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, then when I was done with my college degree, I moved to Montreal to do my bachelor's degree. And actually, in my second year of my degree, we had a class that was an internship. And at that point, I thought that what I wanted to do was work in the fashion corporate world, because either you work for a small business and like the pay isn't there, and I kind of wanted like stability, but at the same time I wanted to stay creative. So
Right.
I did my internship with a company that had like many brands in Canada. The brand that I worked for, they closed, but yeah, I did my internship there for like 6 months, and then after that, like I worked for them for a little bit because they hired me. But the thing is, that job kind of sucked all the life out of me, and it
Oh no.
felt like I was dying, like my brain wasn't being used enough. So then I still had a year of school after that, and I was like, what? It kind of like blew my plans in the water, I didn't know what I was gonna do after that. So at the same time I was at the same time that I was going to school, I was working there part-time, and I was also a waitress. So when I graduated school, I kept my job as a waitress, and then I kind of like kept that job afterwards. And mind you, all this time, I didn't know that the sewing community existed. Like, I think the fashion industry and the sewing community are like two different things.
They're so different.
Yes, we're talking about the same, like we're still talking clothing, but like
Hmm.
it's not comparable really.
Hmm.
So I was working full time as a server, and then I started learning about the sewing community. I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I would love to have my own pattern line. It's always like pattern making, even when I was in school, was my favorite thing.
Mm.
So that's when I like slowly started to work on building a brand. But then the pandemic happened. And
Hmm.
so I lost my job in the service industry, and I was like,
Hmm.
like I've been doing this for maybe like at that point like 2 or 3 years, and I was like, okay, like I think it's time for me to find a job that's in my branch. So basically I built this portfolio online like you do for most fashion jobs, and then I started applying for fashion jobs, and there's this company here that's really well known in Montreal that's like a worldwide footwear brand, and I applied for them, and basically like the process is very long and arduous. Like any fashion job, like you have to do a project for them, and then you have interview on top of interview. Like it's very complicated, but basically I got the job there. So I started working for them in like the beginning of 2021, like right at the same time that I was starting my company. So
Mm.
basically, yes, I studied fashion, but my branch was really clothing. Like I had never worked in footwear before. And so it was really a whole adventure because I had to learn everything. And yeah.
Wow. What kind of shoes were you designing?
Yeah, so the company that I work for, like they have like a lot of products, but I was
Hmm.
like in a branch that was called like casual. So we would do like anything that wasn't like super like high heels, or it was more like loafers, ballerinas, flat sandals, boots, but more on a casual kind of way, like think biker boots or like think Western boots. Those would be in there.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's you said that when you were in school, pattern making was like your favorite class, but then you went towards footwear design. Like, is
Yeah.
it interesting for you to like now be a full-time pattern maker, but like you kind of had to like jump over footwear design, I guess, to get there before doing it?
Not really, because I
No.
always I always knew because of my experience during my internship, I knew that the fashion job that I was gonna get, like I knew what I was gonna get into, and it's more it is fashion. You still
Hmm.
create product, but it's very a corporate job. So
Yeah.
yes, it is a bit more creative than like let's say like just a desk job corporate, but it's not the same. How can I say this? Like drafting patterns is very hands-on. It's
Hmm.
very like I craft everything from the beginning to the end. As soon as you scale your business, you can't do that anymore. You can't do
Right.
everything. So
Hmm.
like I knew going in that it was gonna be like I wasn't gonna be able to do from A to Z or to draft my patterns. Like I just knew that wasn't gonna be the case. So it wasn't really like a surprise. And
Right.
for me, I was just first of all like let's remember that we were in a pandemic. So I was just very happy to like have a job and like
Totally.
and I'm also like super curious, and at my core, like what
Mm.
this job taught me is that at my core, I'm a designer. Like
Mm.
what it taught me is that my skills are transferable. Like I could work not in any field, but let's say tomorrow, like I work for a brand and like a makeup brand and I do packaging, like I will have as much fun learning about component, learning about what you can put or what needs to be put in a container, like how can you find a new way to attract customer through the
Mm.
packaging? Like I think what it taught me is like at my core, who I am is like a designer. I work
Yeah.
in clothing, but like working with footwear, it just it just proved to me that when you're curious enough, like you can
Mhm.
transfer your skills to other things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And you did because you were working simultaneously as a footwear designer and a pattern maker for your company for 4 years.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I was like, How?" How
Yeah.
did you manage to do both at the same time? I mean, usually when, creative people, they're pulling on that creative string, doing this other creative thing, sometimes you don't have the energy for it. How did you manage to have the energy, I guess, for both?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. No, because the thing is, if you had told me when I got my first job, when I first started the job, if you had told
Hmm.
me like in 4 years, you will now only leave your job and do it full time, and like what I'm doing right now, it's like
Hmm.
it's a, I don't want to say I'm gambling because like it's a calculated risk, but
Right.
like I'm not where I thought I was gonna be, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I don't think that like, and you can listen to other people say like it takes a lot of time to become an entrepreneur, and it's also not what's shown on social media, but we can talk
Uh-huh.
about that after. But the thing is, for me, I always came back to like, okay, when it gets too much or whatever, like, what if you think, okay, I'm
Mm.
done with this? How do you feel
Hmm.
about that? And I always told myself, like, I just cannot give up. Like, I cannot give up until I quote unquote make it. So
Hmm.
for me, and every couple months, you're like, oh, I'm not where I'm gonna be. Like, doing a pattern takes so much more time because, like, I have
Yeah.
to do it when I have time, when I have the energy. Then I have to do my content when it's sunny out, because do you think I
Hmm.
have the money to rent a studio and go there and have time? And like on top of that, like I have weekends like every other person, and I'm trying to live a life outside of
Hmm.
work. So it's all those things that were just not dragging me, but I feel like it took so much longer to get to a point where I'm not even
Mm.
where I want to be. But at the
Yeah.
same time, yeah, I just kept telling myself, okay, let's say tomorrow you're like, because I don't have to do this. I had a job that
Yeah.
I love. Like I didn't have to do this, but it's such a passion for me. It's just something that's like so ingrained in me. And I'm just, I don't know how else to tell you. Like it's just
Yeah.
like it was such a thing in me that I just can't let it go. Like the
Yeah.
day that I closed down my business is because I went back and forth from top to bottom. I did
Hmm.
everything that I could, and when I'm done, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm hands off. It's
Hmm.
over, and I'm turning the page, and I don't even look back. But I'm not there yet, and like
Mm.
I don't know that I will be for a long time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, what you always hear people being like, oh, yeah, like I was hustling like 60 hours, like altogether. I never felt like this.
Mm.
Even though I was, like, granted, now I can acknowledge that I did sacrifice like a lot of time, a lot of energy on
Right.
weekends at night, but it never felt like something that was heavy on me. It always felt
Mm.
like, oh, like what's the next step? Like, where
Right.
am I going with this? Like, okay, this is the next step in the pattern making process. Let's go, genre. It never felt like it was something that I was like, yeah, I'm grinding, but it's gonna pay off in the end. Like, I never felt like that. It always felt like something that I was willing to do because for
Mm.
me, something that I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna spend my time on something that like I don't want or I
Right.
don't like. Especially, do you think like it's not like I was making millions of dollars. Do you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
I was not. I still
Okay.
am not, but so I think for me it's something that has to come from you, and
Hmm.
it's something that you just cannot like give up. But at the
Hmm.
same time, who wants to hear that? Like, of course, if you had told me today, if myself today told me where I was to myself 4 years ago, I would have told you what? No, impossible. First of all, I'm gonna pop off because I'm great. So I would have
Yes, you
believed
are.
you.
Let's go.
No, no, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
Hmm.
I know 4 years in this grand scheme of things means
Hmm.
nothing. And I'm telling you, like, it didn't feel like it was a weight on me. But at the end of the day, it's still sacrifices that I made. It just didn't feel like this because I'm so passionate about it. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not someone who gives up, and it's a great quality, but at the same time, it's
Yeah.
like should I? You know, where do we need to draw the line here?
Well, I think your body and your mind and your soul will tell you when it's time to draw the line.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
clearly this is not one of those areas, which like that's so cool, you know, having that kind of deep passion for something that you're like, no, I'm gonna go all the way until I cannot go anymore. That's really cool to hear. Um, so in the sewing community, there seems to be like a common thread of people leaving their jobs to pursue pattern making full time. And it's amazing that people are like taking this leap of faith for their dreams. Um, Clearly your experience was a little different because you waited, you built up your business first, you were working a full-time job, and then you did it. So what made you decide that now was the time to take your business full time, and what has that experience been like over the last few months?
Yeah, so honestly, it's been really new. Like I left at the end of January, so it's been like a month and a half. So I'm still
Oh
very
dang.
much in the like trying to get my bearings.
Hmm.
But the thing is, like I said, like I could only give so much of my time to like, all right, I'm gonna start from there. Okay. So if you want to start your business, right,
Hmm.
people have to know who your business is, like what your business is. You have to do marketing, right?
Hmm.
The thing is, if I had money, if from the jump I had money, I could have put that money into marketing. I don't. I didn't.
Right.
So the quote unquote next best thing, or what is like a great way to do marketing, is content creation and being
Hmm.
a content creator.
Hmm.
But on the side of that being like pattern making is one thing, but then the content creation to bring people to your page, to bring people to be curious about your patterns, is like a different thing. So
Right.
take these two things that like even now, pattern making is like half of the time that I spend. The other time I spent like creating other things that of course it's fun for me, but it's because I want to drive traffic to people to my page for people to be curious about like
Hmm.
my patterns or what I'm making. So this takes a lot of time, and because it takes a lot of time, you can't do as many. Like I could only make maybe like 2 or 3 patterns a year, and that's me working like
Mm.
every week on it. It still wasn't enough, and it's not like I was posting once every month or like twice every month. It's
Hmm.
I was still being consistent with what I could give and
Right.
the time that I had while building my platform and my business. And
Hmm.
the thing is, after 3.5 years, it still wasn't enough. And that's
Mm.
really disheartening when you're like,
Yeah.
I'm giving everything that I can, and
Hmm.
it's still not enough. Like, I'm still not seeing growth. I'm still not where I think I would be. And at the same time, I was growing unhappy at my job too. So it was
Mm.
kind of like a two things at the same time. So like about a year ago, I started out thinking, I think I have to make a move where I have to go all in, and I'm gonna have to sacrifice something, because what I'm doing right now, even if I'm doing the most that I can, it's still not enough. And it's the thing is, it's not fun to hear that, and it's not fun for me to see that all the work that I had done, all the time that I had spent, it's still not good enough to bring me where I want to be. So like really that was the reason behind why I had to plan to escape my corporate job.
I got you. So you've mentioned a couple of times that you're not quite where you want to be. Where do you want to be? Where is that?
Well, first of all, like my mission right now is just to be able to make this a full-time job. Like I'm not far from it, but like I said, like this what I'm taking is a calculated risk. I would have loved nothing more than be like, I'm rolling in dough, I'm quitting my job. But, and like, I want to touch on this really quickly because I feel like those stories, while they are true and those people are amazing and they're great at their job, I just don't think that it's the reality of like 90% of the people that start a brand, that And I feel like I'm that 90%. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
that 90% of people that have been working hard. That it doesn't mean they're not talented. It doesn't mean it just, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to say like we're victim to an algorithm, because I feel like that's taking power away from who we are. But at the same time, and like I don't want to sit back and say like, well, it's because no one is seeing my stuff. You know, like I'm very proactive. I'm trying to see
Right.
like solutions where I can, but I feel like when I say I'm not where I want to be, honestly, I'm just trying to make this a full-time job, like a stable living. And the thing is, like, I have so many patterns that I want to do that I didn't have enough time to do before. And there are other projects that are in the same vein that I would love to expand on eventually. But right now I don't have the time, and I don't have I think I need to build a very strong foundation first, and then I'm going to be able to expand. So, yeah, I think for me, like when I say I'm not where I want to be, it's not that I want to have like millions of followers. Like that's never been my goal. My goal is to make this a full-time job, and then you can build and expand and live from your passion,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I think that you're going to do it. I mean, you're already making the way for yourself right now by saying, "Okay, well, now's the time for me to like do my best and see where this goes." That's got to be a little bit scary. You touched on something that I think is interesting right now in at least in the sewing community, about like how some people tend to, or some people are able to do really well. And it seems like that is the norm. But then you're talking about like the 90%. That's not the reality for a lot of people in the space. Are you open to talking about like what your feelings are about that? I know like some pattern makers in the space have talked on that a little bit from their platforms. And I've always found the responses to be a bit interesting. Do you have a take on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, like, and like, do you feel like this? Like, personally, do you feel like that's the case with your platform? Because I've been following you for years, and like, I feel that way when I look at your numbers. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of feel like you might understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, or okay? So the thing is, I feel like, and okay, I have a bit of beef with people who, and it's not just in the sewing community, but I have a bit of
Uh-huh.
beef with people who like their platform blow up overnight, and then they
Mm-hmm.
kind of start selling this like not course, but like dream that if you're
Mm.
consistent, if you make this, that, and the other, you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have success. The thing that they're saying is it's true. Like it's not that the information they're saying is wrong. It's
Right.
true, but at the same time, I think there's a bit of a blind spot here where for them, and the thing is, I don't want to discredit any of the work that they're making, but I think there's like
Mm-hmm.
this small percentage of luck or good timing that makes their platform go way higher than another creator. And I don't want to take anything away from their talent, but I also see a lot of other talented people that I think
Mm-hmm.
are on the same like on the same level, that
Mm-hmm.
it's just not the case. And at the same time, first of all, like it's not it's not fun for like, let's say, someone that thought they were gonna blow up overnight. They start making pattern, they learn all these things, and then it doesn't. Like, of course you
Right.
don't want to admit to that. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be like, yeah, I follow what you said from A to Z, and I'm not where I thought I was gonna be. So,
Right.
but I think it's more common than people like to admit. And
Mm-hmm.
from and I also think people can be impatient with growth. Listen, like it took me 4 years to get where I am, and it's still very small.
Right.
So, but at the same time, how can I say this? At the same time, it's not a fun story to tell. Like
Mm.
it doesn't work as well as like I was just making a dress one day and then I shared it on Instagram and it blew up. And then I thought, oh, maybe I could be a pattern designer. And I know I'm saying this very genre casually, and it's not, but of course, that's gonna get a lot of views. Of course, people are gonna feel hopeful that this could be a life that they have. And then
Right.
I feel for them that maybe they take that path, and then it's more like someone like me where you see growth, but it's
Hmm.
very gradual. And then you find yourself where you're like, okay, I either have to go all in and give everything that I have, or
Right.
like, what else can I do? And I don't know. I just feel like it's, I don't want to be discouraging to people, but at the
Right.
same time, I feel like they're being sold a dream that maybe isn't going to be a reality for them. And the thing
Right.
is, like, I really don't want to put blame or say anything bad about people that quote unquote blew up, because that's their experience. And
Hmm.
I don't think that they're like out here trying to scam people or like
Right.
tell lies. I truly believe that it is true, but I think they're like 1% of the people. So of course, their experience for them is going to be different, and I think
Hmm.
that gives them a blind spot to what the reality is. That, listen, I've been in the trenches for 4 years. Like, I'm doing the work, and I think that's
Right.
the reality for most people. So
Right.
I don't know.
No, I think that that's totally true. And also, I think that sometimes people forget that a lot of the times when people blow up in this way, or they are producing a lot of content, or they're putting out a lot of patterns, they don't have jobs. That is their job. And I think that people forget, like, some people literally quit their jobs, which is something that you've recently done, but after such a long period of time of like establishing yourself. But some people quit their jobs right at the beginning because they're like, I'm just going to go all in, and it works out for them. They do well. But like you said, like, that's a small percentage of people that make that happen. That's
Yeah,
not the reality for most.
yeah,
And it is a little bit, it can be scary, I think, if people think that, oh, I just need to quit my job and like full send and I'll be good. Like, maybe establish yourself a little bit first. Make sure you actually even like doing this, you know? Like, when people say like, "Oh, I want to learn how to sew." My advice is always try to thrift a machine, buy as little as you need to get started, just to even be sure that you like it before you
yeah,
full send.
yeah,
And I think the same is here, like for a business too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. At the same time, the thing is, I think for that, I'm very naive. Like, I don't know
Mm,
what their situation is. Like, I don't know if
yeah.
they have a partner that support them, because
Right.
I could have never, from my first pattern, I could have never be like, yeah, I think that's good enough, and I could quit my job. Like, now I feel pretty confident that, like, I can make it grow like faster now
Mm,
that I'm doing it full time. But
right.
and maybe it was me being a bit scared also that I didn't do it sooner. But at the
Mm,
same time, I'm very happy to do it now, because I'm so well established in how my business runs that,
mm-hmm.
to me, it's not like I have to learn everything, like how to format my documents or anything. It's like I already have, like, it's a well-oiled machine at this point. So I'm just like,
Right.
go, 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 go.
I remember you posted a reel recently that said that you used to just be like pattern paper, like drafting all your patterns by that, and now you just do it all digitally. And
Yeah,
you were saying like, I would not have believed that I would be doing this all digitally,
yeah,
but you are. So like
yeah,
clearly you've established yourself, you've established how you operate with your patterns. People know who you are in the community and they like your patterns. They're great ones. Speaking of patterns, you're currently working on two, which I'm super excited about both of them. One of them is going to release mid-April, and the other one to release in summer. And you were talking a little about your Pattern Lab series that you share on Instagram. Can you talk about your pattern making process and what it's like producing a pattern from start to end, and also what your favorite and least favorite parts are of the process?
yeah. That one's easy. Okay, my favorite part is the product development stage, and my least favorite
Okay.
part is writing instruction. I think since
Mm.
I graduated from school, I think a part of my brain shrunk, and I cannot write anything anymore. I'm dumb in both languages. that's
Uh,
that's scary. So yeah. So writing instructions, doing the illustration, fine, like that's fun. But
mhm.
writing them, okay. It's like I have to bribe myself to do it. I have to like go to coffee shops because otherwise
It won't happen.
I will find anything that needs to be done in my apartment before I do this. Like anything.
Mood.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
But yeah,
Um,
like I was saying, like my
mhm,
it's a well-oiled machine, so it's always basically the same thing. Like the first thing you want to
mhm.
do is like I don't really sketch anymore because I always have like so many ideas of like
Right.
it's not like a pattern takes like a week to do and then I need to sketch. Like a pattern
Mhm,
for me now, I'm trying to I'm trying to see when I'm full time how long it takes, but it's usually at least like 2 or 3 months. So by the time
mhm.
I'm done, like I've already have like there's like a queue back there with like 15 patterns just waiting for me to make them. So sketching for me isn't like really part of it, but that would be the first step. Then my true first step is like making the protos, and that's my favorite thing.
Mm,
It's like it's like this equation that I need to solve to make my vision come true. And it's trial and error and like seeing what doesn't work. And then I'm like, it's like that meme where the guy like all the equation at the back like going and
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, how can I make this work? And like if I take centimeter here, it's gonna change the whole look. So like that's and I think also it's the longest period of time. Like this can take months because
Mm,
the thing is like when I had my job, like usually I would start a pattern like way before, and then I would do like maybe 1 or 2 protos and leave it for a couple months and then come back to it.
yeah.
Now it's more like okay, like I have 3 weeks, I make sample after sample after sample, and then I just correct them, go back to the computer,
Mm,
and then do the whole thing all over again until I'm like confident in what I'm doing, until I'm satisfied. Then because everything's already on my computer, and I think that's like when you work on paper, you would have to digitize everything. And the thing is,
mhm.
I'm also very impatient. So let's say I would work on one proto, and then I would be like, okay, I just need to take 1 centimeter off the shoulder. I would just cut it off the paper, right? But I wouldn't write it anywhere. So then
Right.
so then you go back and I'm like, oh, what did I do here? Or like if I left it for like a month and then came back to it, I had no idea what I had done because I was just like, yeah, I'll remember this.
Right.
I never
You're never
remember it.
gonna.
So now when I work on Illustrator, you have like these layers. So like each layer for me is like a different prototype. So if I
Mm,
need to go back to one, like I always have them and I always keep them. So
mm.
then it's also easier for me because I know what I did.
Yeah.
So
Keeps you
yeah,
organized.
yeah. It's
Mhm.
not that I'm unorganized. It's just that like it's so easy to make a change.
Right. I forget what you did.
Yes, yes. And like
Mhm.
that's the thing, right? It's like,
Right.
okay, how did I get here? And then you make the
Yeah.
next one and you forgot you had done that. So like things don't match up anymore. Yeah. So that was my thing. And then after
Yeah.
that, it's honestly like past the proto work, like it's just
Mhm.
computer work. So it's like
Mm,
grading, and then it's like making all the cutting plans, making the writing the instruction, making all the booklet. Like I have templates now where that's why I'm saying like it's a well-oiled machine. Like I have a template that's like blank for any of my new patterns. So like I just copy and paste, and then like my cutting plan stock, like I always have it like already, like I have the bones. So
mm.
it's just like a structure of what needs to be done, and then I just fill it in basically. So yeah.
This is like so random of a question, but like, what are your thoughts on cutting plans? Because I don't use them. Like, I see people's cutting plans and their patterns, and I'm like, cool, thanks. I'm gonna do it my way.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
it's funny because like I have my reel that's coming out today. It's about
Hmm.
like because last week I did the cutting plans for the Cove Blouse, my next pattern. And
Hmm.
in it I say like now my patterns, my most recent patterns, I do like a cuttings plan document like separate from the instruction because I
Oh,
hate that they take like 20 pages because you have to have
yes.
all the views, you have to have like different sizes. And the
Hmm.
thing is, like, I had asked people, like, do you guys use this? Because I never do, like,
Hmm.
never. And about like 50% said like they did. So I didn't want
Okay.
to, like, I'm not gonna take something off, even though like
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's more work, and yes, like it could save me time. But so yeah, my what I decided to do was make it like a different document, so it's there if people need it. And in that document now, what I do is like I always have still like the um and that is in my instruction booklet too, like the fabric requirements, the fabric suggestion. But I have like a page that's more like how to read the cutting information on a pattern piece, because sometimes it's just like cut two and you're like, cut two, what does that mean? Like, or like on the fold, like when you start, like maybe you don't know. So uh,
Right.
I have this page that's like, okay, come, if you need that information and you start from zero, like that information is always going to be in that document. So now,
Mm,
yeah, it's a different document for me, because I agree, like I don't use the cutting plans, but I think
right.
some people do, I
Yeah,
respect
yeah.
that.
Totally. So it sounds like you've kind of streamlined your entire process because you've
Yeah.
been doing it for, for the last 4 years. How many prototypes does it take you now to like make a pattern what you want it to be with the experience that you have?
Yeah, I would say like it still takes me like 7, 8 protos. And I
Okay.
think people might be surprised by this, but even
Hmm.
in the industry, like, listen, I worked in footwear, and even before that, like, I'll just take footwear as an example. So where I worked, we had a
Hmm.
whole team in China that was like our development team, and they would show us prototypes when it was like maybe prototype 5 for them, but we only
Right.
saw the number 5, and still we looked at it and we were like, no, like this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. So even in the industry, like the
Mm,
proto number one is never gonna be like, you're always gonna have rounds after rounds, and I think that's normal.
right.
And I actually like I that's why I make people are like, oh, I never make a toile, like me.
That could not be
Never,
me.
never. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Like, to
Hmm.
me, that's asking me to be dissatisfied with something that I'm making. And maybe it's also
100%.
because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but it's just like I don't think it's abnormal to make a lot of prototypes. Like I've seen it in
Hmm.
the industry, and it's even, let's say we had like a style that was a bestseller, and then we want to do like a placement print on it, and I would design the placement print, and I would do like 3 options. Do you think
Hmm.
that my first round of option was the one that they picked? Never. It's always like, oh, you know what, I think that this could be 5% bigger. Oh, can we see it 15% smaller? Oh,
Hmm.
can you actually move this here or here? So it's never, I don't see it as like a bad thing. I think actually it's like a good thing to train your eyes to see what's wrong with a prototype.
Right. Yeah, no, that is a really good and useful skill to have because then it'll streamline the process too. You're like, okay, I know that in this area it's not working, so I need to adjust that on the next one.
Exactly.
And the thing is like the correct practice is to change one thing at most two if you know that they're not affecting each other,
Yeah.
and then continue on. Like you
Yeah.
don't want to change like 20 things in one go because then you're just gonna have 20 more things to deal with later.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 I agree.
That's funny. So you talk about like social media and what you do on your page to kind of like present your patterns, present your work. You do this pattern lab series, which I find so interesting, and I just love that you share like all of these details and tips and process. I think that's super fun to see that. Do you ever find yourself, even though, because like you're going to look at someone's page, you're going to look at their numbers, you're going to look at what they're producing and be like, oh my God, they're so cool. Everything that they're putting out, they seem so with it. They seem like they have everything figured out, but we're all humans and like we never have everything figured out. So do you ever find yourself kind of feeling like imposter syndrome or questioning why you create or questioning if like what you're putting out is good enough? Um, if yes, how do you manage that? If no, why not?
That's a very interesting question, because I don't think my answer will be like any, because I feel like everyone always feel imposter syndrome. I don't.
Hmm.
And
Mm,
the reason why I don't, and I just touch on that, but I think for me, it's all about developing your eye. So it's the
mm,
same thing that I went through with when I started in footwear. What I hated the most about at the beginning of the job was that I couldn't look at a shoe and find what was wrong with it. I looked at it and I was like, it looks good to me. And then I had my senior designer that was like, oh yeah, like this is unbalanced. Like what kind of leather is this? Like the finishing isn't good. So, and I think it's the same thing for clothing. Like I think, and that's why I make a lot of protos. I think when you develop your eye and you have the understanding of like, this looks a certain way because of this mistake here that you need to fix, then if you have an understanding of what affects the fit, how it's going to end up looking, then you have this knowledge that I don't know how to say it, but it's just if you understand how something works, then you're much more confident in if it looks good or if it doesn't. And I'm saying this like I started maybe 15 years ago. So of course, like I had more time to develop my eye, but for me, like that's the thing that makes me the most confident in my work is like looking at something and being able to look at it. And even if I don't know what the solution is, looking at it and being like, oh, there's something that bothers my eyes here. Let me see if I make an adjustment, then I make another proto. Did it correct it? If it did, then I know next time I see this thing, I will know what the solution is. Otherwise, you go back to the drawing board, you try something else until you find the solution. Then that builds your confidence up in knowing how to draft a pattern. So because now I'm more advanced in my career, and I think that's different because like I went to school for this, like of course, like I have more like it's in my blood at this point, but no, I don't want to say that, no, truly, but it's just like, and I have like experience, but I still feel like I learn a lot. So that's the thing, like you can always learn more, but I think the thing is you have to train your eye. If you know that the first prototype, don't ever think that your first prototype is going to be the right one. So try and train your eye to look at what you think looks wrong. Even if you're not sure, I would say go with your gut, because I feel like you're going to look at something and like really quickly, there's going to be things that your eyes snag on, but you're going to be like, oh no, I think it looks fine. No, investigate that, because then it's just how you get a more perfect fit. And to me, that's how I got that's why I don't feel like an imposter syndrome in that way, because I think like my eye now is more trained to see like imperfection. So I can be more critical about my work. And at the same time, like knowing that my work is not going to be perfect right away, it just makes me better at the end of the day. So that was my first thing. So I think because of that, I don't feel like being an imposter. But the other thing, I remember when because I started college, I was 18. I remember when I started, I had such a hard time understanding fabric. Like basically, I didn't even know that there was a difference between knit and woven. Like, no, but like now
can you know?
Now it feels like, of course, it feels ridiculous because now I know so much more, but back then I just didn't. And, I think for me, if you feel uncomfortable or unconfident in like around fabrics, my personal recommendation would be to, when you go to the store or something, always snap a picture of like the composition, what the fabric is, and the weight of the fabric, because then, and like clip it together. So then you have like, I don't know, but it's just like build kind of a library of everything. So then like, oh, a cotton voile, what is this gonna look like?
Right.
Because now that I know all of that, I have no trouble buying fabric online ever. Like and I never have surprise, because I look at what the name of the thing is, I look at the composition, and then if I'm not sure, I look at the GSM, like the number of grams, like the weight of the fabric, and I can always tell like what kind of fabric is going to be. I never have like surprises anymore.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I started knitting, not like I just started knitting, right?
Yes, and you knit your first sweater so
I
quickly.
did. Thank you. And the thing is, like, now I have the same problem in that area too, because I buy not a lot, but I know I'm gonna buy most of my yarn online, but I'm not sure like listen, I started a bamboo sweater, right? And I was like, okay, I just need like 7 balls of yarn. This shows up to my house. It's
Tiny.
the thickness of it is literally floss.
Yeah.
Like because I don't know how to read. I if I had like I don't have the experience to read the label.
Yeah.
I knew
Mhm.
bamboo. I was like, oh, bamboo viscose is gonna be like so soft. At that area, I was right, because I know that from fabric, but I have no idea what weight means. So
Right.
like it shows up and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna need
Like, what is this?
like 10. So I put like 3 strand of it together to get the current weight. So what I did from there is like I ordered like different ball of yarn, just one of like
Mhm.
merino wool. I bought like alpaca, like silk, or like different like cotton silk, because I'm gonna do like swatches, because I want to know.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna buy like 20 balls of something and then it's not comfortable. And I'm
Yeah.
not confident enough right now with the composition or the weight of the yarn. So I just said like, okay, I'm just gonna buy like things that I think or like that are
Mhm.
popular, just to see and feel how they are. So then at least if I'm buying something else, then I'm gonna have like a point of reference. So I think that's the same for
Right.
fabric. And sorry, to come back to that, building up your confidence about like knowing what like your fabric is, or like we said, like about like drafting patterns and everything. I think that's how you
Mhm.
you get to feel not like you're an imposter. Because when I feel
Yeah.
like an imposter, it's like when I go to the shop for my car, because I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know if you're
Mhm.
trying to sell me something that I don't need. So for me, it's like if I understand how it works, if I understand the mechanics of it, then I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, 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 okay,
Mm.
right. And
Yeah.
when you don't know that, I feel like that's when you can feel like you're not confident in what you're saying, or in your skill. That makes sense.
Right. 100%. It's actually so interesting. In episode number 2 that drops on April 17th, I was speaking with a crochet artist, Mua, at Hansa Design, and she essentially said the same thing. She was like,
Really?
nah, I've been crocheting for so long. I'm confident in this. I know what I'm doing. I do not experience imposter syndrome. And I'm like, so it really sounds like it comes from a place of confidence and experience to kind of eliminate some of these like doubts and fears around creating and like trying to put yourself out there. And I think that's so, so true. I find that like I feel imposter syndrome with things that maybe I have a little bit less experience in, that I'm like, oh, I want to do this well and I know that I can do it well, but do I have the skills to do it well? And then that's where like, oh, am I an imposter? I'm doubting. But when it comes to other things that I'm like, oh, I've been doing this forever, you kind of take out that fear and it becomes more practical, and you're a little bit detached from like, this has to be perfect immediately. Otherwise people are not going to, view me in whatever way. You're just like, well, I know how to do this. If it's wrong or if there's something, messed up about it, I'll fix it and then problem solved.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you kind of approach like the way you think about your patterns and like adjusting things in that same way.
And it's also knowing that it's not going to be perfect. Like, it's also, I'm confident in the fact that like proto number one is never going to look right. And
Right.
maybe someone's going to come out of the woodwork and be like, actually, you know what? I make one proto and it looks good. Listen, I'm curious. I would
Hmm.
love to see it. If you have
Right.
like, if you're someone that has like a lot of experience, like I'm thinking about my teachers that had like 30 years of
Mm.
experience. She could tell me anything and I'd be like, you're so
Yep.
right. You are
Yeah.
right. And I would love nothing more than to be that person. Oh my
Hmm.
God. But like, I still have like a lot to learn. And I feel like eh, the fashion industry is so nice for this. There's always new trends. There's always so many things that
Yeah.
are new, changing, and there's always like many things to learn. But yeah, I
Hmm.
just think that it's like also when you're confident in the fact that it's not going to be looking good right out the gate. Whereas like if you think that it should look good right out the gate, then you're going to feel like even
Hmm.
more imposter, because you're like, oh, like I feel like I see all these people making patterns and it looks so good.
Right.
And like that's kind of like my thing too with Pattern Lab. It's like you see me going through like, look at my first proto of the last pattern. Like my first proto is, I always like, I know it's going to be a dumpster fire. Like I don't judge it. It's more like, you know what? You tell me where we're going. Like, how far from where I want to go am I? Like, that's more my approach, you know? And it's
That
also,
is, yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, I was gonna say that's a beautiful approach. I love that you think about it in this way.
Yeah. But if
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
awesome.
know and you think it needs to be perfect right out the gate, then I understand that you would feel some type of way and be like, it looks really bad. But yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. It sounds like, yeah, I can hear the passion, and I can hear just like the experience and the way that you talk about these things, and it's really cool to hear and see. So on that note, what motivates you to continue creating patterns and content for social media, and like what are you most looking forward to in this new season of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, making patterns or being a designer, it's always going to be like part of me. I think even if I weren't being working in clothing, I would be working in some kind of other capacity as a designer. And right now it's clothing, so that's very cool. But I think like being on social media is very interesting because I know it's gonna sound like dumb, but like me, if I had had the money to have like a marketing team and never be at the forefront of everything, you would have never seen me.
Never seen you?
Never seen me. Do you, do you like, I always think about like, you know, when you watch like a runway show and like the designer at the end always comes out and they're always like in black and they're always like, hi, thank you
Very
so much
like,
for showing up.
yeah.
Like, I relate to this. And the thing is like I have learned to enjoy it, but like I am so not like a center of attention person. Like I'm me, I want to be anonymous. And I know it sounds like as if I'm lying because I'm sharing things on the internet, but I'm telling you like it's true because the internet to me doesn't feel real. Like it doesn't impact my real life. So I'm like, okay.
Right.
And you know, I did learn to love it. And like I said, like I would never do something that I don't enjoy doing. So
Right.
that's why now I feel like, you know, I started Pattern Lab like not that long ago, but now I feel like I'm like, yes, this is a sweet spot for me where I get to like show something that maybe other people don't see. And like, it's fun for me. And I get to like show my personality a little bit more. And, but it's just, yeah, I'm just really not someone that likes to be like center of attention and like, but at the same time, I know it's a good marketing tactics, and I don't want to be disingenuous by saying like you would never see me, but like it's true.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie at the same time. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just I see the value in it, and I have learned to like it, and it's fun to share things, but it's not like it's not in my blood.
Yeah.
If I could be just like a background
Behind the
actor,
scenes.
you would never see me. I'd be like
Well,
in my atelier, genre, I would be like, you know, like the with my headphones on and my like my hoodie and just like disgusting and making beautiful things. Like I want my work to speak for itself, but like it's not the case. Like I have to showcase myself in order, and I have to have like people care about my work through me, which it's fine. And like I've learned that it can be really fun too. And it's like now it kind of opened this door for me to be creative and in a way that I didn't think would be possible. But
yeah.
yeah, I just don't think like it's natural for me. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Instagram goes because I just read something this morning that they want to like take reels out of the platform and like make it back to just like pictures. So I don't know. At the same time, I'm thinking about like I would maybe like to start like a YouTube for more like longer format things, but at the same time, that's like a whole other thing. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but we'll
Yeah,
see.
that's, I know that I follow, what's his handle? Moseri Adam, the CEO of Instagram.
Okay, yeah,
And so
yeah.
like I try to see his updates and stuff. And I know a few weeks ago or a month ago, maybe he was saying that like reels are here to stay. So I hope whatever you saw is not true.
Because I was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, please don't. That would be strange at this point. Plus, I mean, video is a great way to really connect with people the best way that you can without like being right in front of them, you know? Like pictures are great and beautiful and obviously they like make an impact and like they're art pieces and whatnot, they can be. But video allows you to like really connect with somebody on another level. And you know, I've felt like obviously there's like that parasocial relationship that you have, which is a little, you know, you want to try to find the line, I think, and like have the boundary on how deeply you think that you know somebody on the internet.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you and I have been following each other for years now. And
I feel like
even though I don't,
I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm like, oh, we're gonna be great friends. So I'm like, it's all good. Like but at the same time, I'm like, is this weird? Or it's like, if you see someone and sometimes you just know their handle and like they message you and like that would be my nightmare to meet someone and be like, oh, I've been talking to you and now I just don't know it's you. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like do you watch Love is Blind?
I started this season, but I'm like, ugh. I'm like, well, guys, we've done this before.
What?
Like, what they're saying, oh my God, I just cannot. But yeah, go on.
I feel like something that like a lot of them say is like when they're talking in the pods before they see each other, they're connecting and they feel like they know them. And then when they meet them in real life, they're like, who are you? Like, I've never met you before. Like, I hear your voice, but you're a different person.
Yeah.
I feel like meeting people that you know on social media in real life is probably the similar vibe. Like, I've been following you for a while, but I've never met you. But yeah, I think that's funny.
And for me, it's like I'm talking about this makes me like shrivel on the inside because I would never want someone to meet me to think that I'm like different than what I project online. So I'm gonna be like, hi, how are you? Like I'm gonna be like more extra because like I'm like I have to fill the silence. I'm gonna ask like 20 questions because like to me that's such like a fear of mine or like the way that I look in real life. Like, is it different? The perception, like I know at the end of the day, like it's not like I'm famous. Like that must be awful. But yeah, it's definitely really weird because I feel like there's some people that you feel like you know, and it's like I'm giving you A and I'm giving you C and you're filling in B. So it's like, I don't know. Interesting.
But I think it's great because I thought we would get along and here we are. So
yeah. I'm not surprised because I was like,
me either.
You know what? I see what she shares. I'm like, I get it. I see the vision. I get it.
I love it. I love it so much. And I just really appreciate you being here today. I've loved talking to you and like going through all these things. And I think that your perspective and like just how you approach your craft it's really inspiring and it's really cool. And I'm so excited to see what you do now that you're full time. That's awesome.
Thank you. It was so nice. I'm so happy. I'm just like very excited to see how this goes. And you have the most wonderful voice for a podcast. I feel like, you know what you should do? You should do like the going to sleep for people. Like I've
thought about that.
ASMR, like.
Yeah. I've thought about it. I'm like, hello, you're trying to fall asleep.
And even that, like, I don't know if I can say that, but do you know what the app Quinn is?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay. So it's like this app where it's like erotica, but like you listen to them.
Right.
You would be great at this.
A compliment I never thought I'd get. Thank you.
Like you would be a great voice actor. Like it's just it works.
Wow, I'm gonna have to have you on the podcast every time. You're just like boasting me.
me in a year, I'm like, well, you know, like I had to abandon everything, or like, we never know. That's exciting because you could have me in a year, and then it's like the evolution. So,
yes, a totally different thing. Yes. I'm excited to see your evolution. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for listening to the Stitched by podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, another one drops next month on April 17th. To be updated on upcoming guests and topics, visit stitchedbypodcast.com and find me on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Stitched by Podcast. I want to thank my guest, Sarah, for joining me on today's episode. Find Sarah on Instagram at Sarah Bernier and Les Perlines and on her website for her patterns at lesperlines.com. I'm your host, Ari, at Stitched by Ari, signing off for now.